wave at the camera.
Start?
That's good.
Start? Okay. So, quiet refresher. Lab report sheets. Turned in via Dropbox for section 2A, 2B. Section 1A, 1B, they want to do paper. And they are following all of the rules and regulations that I mentioned. Okay? Either you could turn it in as a Word document where you insert all of the photos, and then you have to save the file as your name, and then read to lab report sheets, these activities. If you're going to be turning in paper, which is for 1A, 1B, all of the activities stapled with a sticky note, your cover page with your first name, last name, anatomy, section, and campus, as well as what week and what activities are covered in each week. Okay? For 1A, 1B, lab report sheets are due on Monday as soon as you come into class, and it's going to be placed while you're taking the exam. I'm going to start collecting them. 2A, 2B, you're going to be doing it in a Dropbox, which is due Sunday at 12 o'clock at night. Okay? Please do it in advance. Critical thinking, all four sections, 1A and 1B, 2A, 2B, Dropbox. Okay? All right. Now, let's participation assignment is not mandatory. I'm not going to give extra points. It's just for extra help. Only homework you have for this class: critical thinking and lab report sheets, which are also known as review sheet, which is found at the end of each exercise in your lab manual. Okay. Now, let's get started with today's lecture. Today we're going to talk about the skeletal system. Okay? Now, there's certain part of this lecture that is time-consuming, where I have to explain, so I will take up most of my time. There's other part to this lecture, which basically it's just memorization, and I will go much faster. The reason is because I want you to work on the case theories. Does that make sense? Now, skeletal system is made up of 3 different types of connective tissue: bones, ligaments, and cartilage. Now, when we talk about bones, bones can be classified according to different types, according to the shape: long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. Okay? Example of a long bone is your humerus, your tibia. Okay? Example of short bone are basically your carpals, like your wrist bones. Example of flat bone basically is like your scapula, which is your shoulder blade in the back. And irregular bones basically is like your hip bone. It has an odd shape. Now, functions of the skeletal system. Basically, it supports you. Okay? Basically, everything is built up. It's basically a foundation. You have a building. First, you have the wooden structure on top. Everything is the same thing. Okay? Skeleton basically makes your structure support. Movement, because muscles attach to bone. Okay? So basically, when bones move, it causes the muscles move. If muscle moves, you have protection. Basically, the bones will protect your internal organs. Example is your rib cage. Your rib cage basically houses the heart and the lungs, therefore it protects it. Formation of red blood cells. In your bone, your red bone marrow, red bone marrow, you have a special cell called stem cell. Okay? Now, a stem cell is said to be a precursor cell. Okay? It's still not naive. It could differentiate into different branches. It could differentiate into a white blood cell, can differentiate into red blood cell, or it could differentiate into platelet. Platelets. depending on what growth factor, what signals our body is sending out. Okay? It also does mineral storage. You actually have calcium and phosphate, which makes up the matrix of bone. Okay, the mineral portion. Because if you guys know, the matrix is also made up of a protein called osteoid. Okay, so the matrix of bone is made up of protein called osteoid and the minerals. What minerals? Calcium and phosphate. Okay, am I going too fast? Okay, now let's look at a long bone and find different, identify different structures. Now once again, this week in lab, you're going to be looking at bone. It will have more structures than what I'm showing you, but it's much easier to actually locate that on a book instead of me trying to do it on a photo, and you guys all obviously do it. Okay? So I'm going to, again, as you know, do the theory part, and you have the lab for actually the hands-on. Certain things. Basically, a bone has this end part. It's called the epiphysis, which is right here. And then, so both of these are epiphysis. A is epiphysis. And then the middle part, which is this part, and that's B, is diaphysis. Okay. So the ends are epiphysis, the middle is diaphysis. Now, at the end of epiphysis, at the end of epiphysis, you have this outer covering, which is called, it's made up of hyaline cartilage. Hyaline cartilage. What is the function of it? Function is basically decreases friction. Because in a joint, you know that two different bones are coming against each other, rubbing against each other. So therefore the hyaline cartilage is covered, therefore when they rub, when they go against each other, it reduces friction. Okay? So it's a protective measure. Another thing you have is basically, you have a bone and outside you have this outermost covering, which is like a tissue that encloses the entire bone from head to toe. This is called the periosteum. Periosteum. It's called the periosteum. Periosteum is connective tissue. It's made up of connective tissue. And its function is protection. Anytime this outermost covering is made up of connective tissue, it's always there for protection. Okay? So basically, let's say I had a long sleeve. Okay, here's my arm, which is the bone, and that long sleeve would have been the periosteum, which is protective. Don't you wear long sleeve in the winter to protect your body from cold? Right? Now, you see other two letters, which is F and E. So, the epiphysis and the diaphysis actually have two different types of bone. Its composition of bone is different. E, okay, E is basically spongy bone. Sorry, it's not lined up properly. Okay, spongy bone. And F is compact bone. F is compact bone. Okay? So meaning diaphysis is made up of compact bone, where the epiphysis is made up of spongy bone. Make sense? Now we're going to draw the epiphysis. If you have colors, please use colors. Okay? Always bring colors to this class. Because other color coordinate stuff will help you study much. Now, epiphysis is made up of two different things. First, one thing, you have these structures called tuberculae. Alright? tuberculae. Tuberculae actually have calcium inside it. They're calcium storage site, as well as it has some cells in it. Calcium and cells within the tuberculae. So think of like basically you have a mountain and then basically there's pavement. Okay? So think of it that way. Basically tuberculae are little spaces which calcium and cells are found inside. Rest of it basically around the tuberculae is red bone marrow. Red bone marrow. Within the red bone marrow, you find blood vessels. Blood vessels means artery, vein, and then of course nerve. Okay? So if you find blood vessels and nerves. VV means artery, vein, and means nerve. You find blood vessels and nerves running through it. What else do you find? You find actually stem cells. You actually find stem cells within it. So this is basically epiphysis. This is what compact spongy bone is made up of, or what spongy bone is. Spongy bone contains basically red bone marrow and tuberculae. Okay? Within the red bone marrow, you find blood vessels, nerves, and you find stem cells. These stem cells will turn into cellular part of blood, and the blood vessels are there to supply it nutrients and collect waste products. So these stem cells are living things. They need nutrients to survive. So where do they get the nutrients? From the blood vessels. Okay? They also produce waste products. The waste products has to get away. Where does the waste products go? It goes into the blood vessel. Does that make sense? So nutrients go from blood vessels into the cells. Waste products go from the cell to the blood vessels. Okay? Any questions? Yes?
Did you purposely put the stem cells on the edge of the red bone marrow, or is it?
No, it's just
inside?
diffuse. It's just interspread everywhere. But it is in red bone marrow, not in tuberculosis. Okay? This board right now, it doesn't let me. It's not lined up properly. And I don't want to waste any more time and call Rudy. He's a great person who will come and help. Okay. This is a summary. Okay, I'm not going to spell it. Okay, FYI. Basically, here is the summary of epiphysis. As you said, spongy bone is less dense than compact bone. It makes it, it's light but strong at the same time. So basically, you find the summary. Now we're going to talk about compact bone. Now, compact bone basically split the page into two sections. So basically, this is your slide. The smaller portion is this, and a bigger portion is the drawing this. Compact bone you find in a diaphysis. What is compact bone made up of? So here is the diaphysis. Within the what is compact bone made up of? Basically, you find structures which are called osteomes. These cylindrical structures are osteomes. And around the osteomes, so osteome is actually the cellular portion of the bone, and then the matrix is found around the osteome. Okay? So all of this is the matrix. And what did I say? What is the matrix of the bone made up of? Osteoid, which is a protein, and minerals, which are calcium and phosphate. So you find osteoid. I'm just going to abbreviate OS as osteoid. Okay, and you find basically minerals, which are calcium and phosphate. Calcium and phosphate. Okay. Does that make sense? What are the several things? Osteome. Blue is basically the matrix. What is a matrix made up of? Matrix is made up of the osteoid, which is a protein, and is calcium and phosphate. Okay? And the osteome is basically the cellular part of bone. Okay?
Wait, is the matrix the osteoid or the osteoid?
I can't hear you.
The matrix of the bone, because earlier I remember you saying it was calcium and phosphate was the mineral.
Yes,
And then the matrix
protein
was-
osteoid.
Okay.
But this is osteome. Osteome, osteoid. Two different things. Okay? Osteoid is a protein. Osteome is a cellular part. Does that make sense? The cylindrical structure for osteome, O-S-T-E-O-N. This protein OS is osteoid. Okay? Osteo means bone. So everything is going to start with osteo. Even when you go into pathology, cancers, osteosarcoma. Okay? The clinical thinking you guys did for last week, they didn't say osteosarcoma. Basically, cancer of the bone. So anytime something is bone related, it starts with osteo. Now, the next portion, what we're going to do is we're going to actually look at what is osteome. What is the osteome made up of? Okay? Now, osteome is a cylindrical structure in which osteocytes are arranged in rings. Okay? Arranged in rings. So, do you see? This is the osteocyte, this is the osteocyte, this is the osteocyte. And the osteocytes are arranged in rings in circular fashion. Does that make sense? Because the osteocytes are not standing up straight, they're actually, when they are arranged in circles. Therefore, when you look like it, it looks like a cylindrical structure. Doesn't it look like a cylindrical structure? So this osteome is a cylindrical structure in which osteocytes are arranged in rings. Make sense? Huh? Now, what is the difference between osteocyte and osteoblast? Appearance-wise. If I give you two cells, how would you know this is an osteocyte whereas this is osteoblast? Exactly. So osteocytes are found in a lacunae. So right here, we have these lacunae, chamber-like structures. Now, all of them are enclosed in. I'm just not spending time to actually draw a box and what everything's going on. Okay? Now, right in the middle, this is called the central canal. This is the central canal. And the central canal actually contains blood vessels and nerves. So blood vessels and nerves are coming through the central canal. Okay. Yes,
What was this? What is it again?
lacunae. Yes. So basically, think of a lacunae as your room, and you are the osteocyte. Usually, spend some time at age and all this locked up in their room, right? Not that I have a kid that would be here, but anyway.
So the central canal is within the osteome.
Yes, central canal is basically right in the middle of the osteome. It contains blood vessels and nerves coming through. How do the osteocytes get their nutrition? How does osteocyte is a cell? So it needs nutrition, and it also needs to get rid of waste products. So basically, the cells which are closest to the blood vessel will get nutrition via diffusion. Okay? Does that make sense? So if I am, imagine me as center canal and I'm the blood vessel coming through the center canal. The first row of students are this ring right here. Okay? The second row of students are this second ring, and so forth. Okay? It could have multiple rings. I only draw two rings. I have basically paperwork that I need to pass out, and let's say I broke my leg and I can't walk to you. So I pass out paper directly right here. How do the rest of you guys get up here? If you're too lazy, not going to come up. Pass it back, right? So I would give basically the paperwork handed out and rest. Basically, they send it to you, correct? Okay. So the cells which are the closest get it via diffusion. Me actually passing out the paperwork to you. But the cells which are getting farther away from the blood vessels or central canal, they get it via basically passing this out. So what cell junction allowed exchange of material between two cells? Gap junction. So each osteocyte is connected to each other via gap junctions. But gap junctions are actually found in a specialized structure called caniculi or canal. So each cell is connected to each other via these canals or caniculi. It's basically just a network of connection. Canals or caniculi. Do you see they're just network of connections? Now, what does a canal remind you of? Forget science. When I say canal, what goes through your mind? River or water, right? Fluid. Canal contains fluid. These caniculi or canals actually contain fluid. What do they contain? Cytosol. Okay? Because these canals are actually cytoplasmic extension of the osteocyte. Does that make sense? Yes? So within this canals or these caniculi, you actually find gap junction. Okay. I can't. Okay, but right in the middle, you will see gap junction, and that allows substance to cross between two cells. Make sense? So, can you two hold hands? So, okay. Can you hold hand with her? Can you hold hand with somebody else? You hold hand with her. Does that make sense? Do you see there's a connection? So these are osteocyte. This is caniculi, and this part is the gap junction. Do you see this one's connected to this cell too? Does that make sense? This is what's going on. You guys can look at it. Okay. Do you guys understand this? Now, nutrients will go from the blood vessel, from the central canal towards the cell. But how does waste products travel? They travel from the cell to the central canal. Okay? If you have to turn in something to me, okay, it goes this direction, right? But if I have to give something to you, it goes this direction, correct? Same concept. Do you guys understand osteoid? Yes? I just answered. So right here it shows you the image. Basically, here in diathesis, when you see, these are osteomes. As you can see, it's made up of osteomes. When you take a deeper look at an osteome, okay, you can see these are osteocytes. They're connected to each other via these canals, and these canals contain gap junctions. And then this is where the spongy bone starts, and you can see these folds are tubercular. They're little like caves that contain cells and calcium. Okay, this is just a summary for you guys of what we discussed on contact form. Another summary. Any questions so far? Easy enough? Yes.
After the first
set of cells when they pass it off, the first is diffusion, then is that active transport after, is that what they're?
No, so diffusion is active transport, after that is just like a capture.
Okay.
It's- Yeah, just capture. So the first set of osteocyte will get, let's say, 100% of nutrients. They will keep 10%, send the 90 back. The second row will keep 10%, send the rest back. Does that make sense? Okay, now let's talk about ligaments and cartilage. Ligaments are dense connective tissue. DCT means dense connective tissue. Attaches bone to bone and provides strength to joints while allowing movement. Cartilage, smoother and more flexible than bone. Where do you find cartilage? Support and movement under pressure is needed. Okay? There are three types of cartilages. Fibrocartilage, here's the image, what it looks like. Hyaline cartilage, what it looks like. Elastic cartilage, what it looks like. You should be able to recognize this in lecture as well as in lab. Okay? Now, there are multiple places where you find these cartilage, but the two I want you to know for lecture, lab you might need to know more. Two places where you find fibrocartilage. This is basically the vertebrae column. Here's one vertebrae, second vertebrae. Between two vertebrae, you have this structure called the intervertebral disc. A portion of the intervertebral disc is made up of fibrocartilage. Okay? In your knee, you have this structure right here, which is called the meniscus. It's also made up of fibrocartilage, right here. So you have your patella right next to your patella, a little bit lower and right next to it. That's meniscus, and it's also made up of fibrocartilage. Where do you find hyaline cartilage? The places I want you to know for lab or lecture. Basically, one year with the first end of the epithesis, you can see right here is hyaline cartilage. Another place is in your larynx and your trachea. Okay, they actually contain. Do you feel these rings right here? Those are tracheal rings. A portion of each ring is made up of hyaline cartilage. And you will see that in lab when you actually look at the slides. Do you see right here, this is one bone, and this there in a joint. Do you see that the hyaline cartilage is nice over here, but over here it's starting to be damaged? When the hyaline cartilage starts to damage, this is when you start developing arthritis. At least there's different types of arthritis, but one of them is due to this hyaline cartilage being damaged. Now, it can't reduce the friction, and this is why they say you never grab two muscles, because it could destroy the hyaline cartilage. And it will cause you to have arthritis, yes.
Would it do the same thing in your spinal, the intervertebral disc? Would they do the same thing? If you broke it?
Over there you don't have a hyaline cartilage.
No, I understand. I'm saying would it still cause arthritis in that area?
Yes, you could have arthritis in your spinal column, or in your vertebral column, but it's a different reason. It's not due to this. When you go in pathology, you nowadays osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, there's multiple types of arthritis. You have a different cause, the reason behind it. Elastic cartilage, two places I want you to know. The outer ear. If you pull on this part, on your ear, okay, as soon as you pull, it will stretch, but as soon as you let go, it comes back to its original shape. Elastic, you're allowed to stretch it, but then it will collapse, okay? So this outer part, the ear, is basically elastic cartilage. Another structure called the epiglottis is elastic cartilage. Okay? I will talk about what epiglottis is when we talk about the respiratory and digestive system right now. Right now, just know it's only epiglottis. Yeah, it is flat. Now we're going to talk about bone development. Can you stop the recording for just a sec? I need to go get something for you guys.